back everybody to another episode of the Minecraft mod making series. In this episode we will be learning how to make an item in Minecraft and also how to make a crafting recipe. So what we're going to do for step 1 is we're going to need to create the item. And to do this we're going to need to import it like we did with the block. But first we'll need to organize our stuff a little bit. So I'm going to make a new note. The way to make a note is you type 2 slashes. What we're going to type in this note is we're going to type blocks, because this is the section we want all our blocks to be in. Up here we're going to name this one items, and this is where we'll type our new code. Public static item. This means we are going to create an item as opposed to making a block, and we'll call this Ruby item. Space equals space. Type new Ruby item and parentheses, and let me explain what's happening so far. So currently right here we're making a new item. We're calling this a Ruby item, and we're just repeating the name we have back here. So we have Ruby item and Ruby item. Inside here is we're going to make our ID. Since we made this one 3141, I'm going to call this one 3142. And you don't have to put anything inside there because items don't have materials. So what we're going to do is we're going to type dot set unlocalized name, open parentheses, quotation marks, and inside these quotation marks we're going to type what we want to call it. So I'll call this just Ruby. After this, type set texture name, open parentheses, and quotation marks, and in these quotation marks you're going to type Ruby mod, all in lowercase, colon, Ruby item. What we called it back here would be helpful. At the end you're going to put a semicolon, and that should fix some of the errors. To fix this error over item, hover over it and click import item to net.minecraft.item, and that will import it up here. And next we have an error at Ruby item, and we will fix that in 1 second. Next you're going to go into this public Ruby mod section with the open bracket, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do slash slash, which is making a new note. Call this note blocks. Above it we're going to make another note called items. In this items one we're going to type game registry, capital G and capital R, dot register, capital I, item, open parentheses. In these open parentheses we're going to type Ruby item, whatever we named it up here, right here. After Ruby item we're going to put a comma and a space, and then you're going to put in quotation marks the same thing, so Ruby item. After that all you need to do is you'll need to put a semicolon. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to need to make this Ruby item in here, but we don't want to put it under rubymod.blocks because that's where our blocks are. So we'll right click source/main/java, hover over new, and make a new package. Call this package rubymod.item. Hit enter, and this package doesn't have anything in it, so we'll need to change that by making a new class. So under the name, we're going to call this class whatever we called it right here. So we'll call this Ruby item. These are case sensitive, so remember to make it exactly the same in all of these. So capital R and capital I. So you can see we want to save this one. Do not forget to frequently save, because in the case that your Eclipse crashes, you will not want to restart your code. So after public class Ruby item, but before the open bracket, we're going to type extends space capital I item. We have an error on item, hover over it, import it to net.minecraft.item, and that will fix that error. Next, go into the brackets, press enter a couple times so we have a little bit of space, and in these brackets we're going to type public Ruby, capital R, capital I, and item, and then open parentheses, int space I. After those parentheses, you're going to put a spacebar and then open bracket. Press enter a couple times so we have a little bit of space. And then inside these brackets, we're going to type this dot set creative tab, open parentheses, creative tabs dot. And this is what creative tab your item is going to be in. So I want to put mine in the materials tab, so the code name for that is going to be lowercase t in tab and then capital M for materials. After that, you're going to put a semicolon, and you can see we have an error at creative tabs. All you need to do is import that, and that will fix all the errors. Save that, come over here, and we will need to manually import it. We will need to manually import it. So up here in your imports, to get to your imports, you're going to need to press this plus sign, and it will open up every import you have. You're going to go to the bottom and type import ruby mod dot item dot ruby item, and put a semicolon at the end, and that should fix all the errors. Hit save, and that will save everything. Next step we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go into source main/resources, and we're going to need to make a new package. Call this package assets.rubymod.textures.item, and hit enter. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to put our texture of our Ruby item into there. If you do not have Photoshop or any kind of editing tool, Paint will not work in this, by the way. You will need to download the texture I made, so the link is in the description below if you need it. And like in the last episode, all you need to do to download a 16:16 image is you need to go into Google and search with the preset of a 16:16 image. So there you go. I'll be right back once I'm done making this texture. Alright, I've completed making it, and now all you need to do is you'll need to go into your Minecraft mod tutorial folder and double tap this folder we made in Forge. Double tap source, main, resources, assets, Ruby mod, textures, item, and in there you will put your ruby item.png. Remember to save this as a PNG so it can be see-through when we load it into Minecraft. And another thing to remember is whatever we called our texture at right here, for example I called it ruby item, we will need to call it that in the texture. So you can see I called it ruby item, capital R and capital I. If you exit out of there, you can notice it is in here now. Hit run, and let's see if it is working alright. You just need to load up your world. And let's see. Our texture is not working. Why is that? So it is in the materials tab though, so we can find it down here. But I'll get right back to you after I figure out the solution to this problem. Alright, that was my bad. The way to fix this is you'll need to name this assets.rubymod.textures.items. The easy way to fix this is, instead of deleting this whole thing, go into here, right click it, and press rename. Just add an S to the end of it, and it will update it in here. And it looks like our Ruby texture is working. Now we'll have to add the name for it in game. So the way we do this is we will type item dot whatever we named it over here. I called this Ruby and set unlocalized name. Ruby dot name equal sign Ruby, and save it right there. Press run. Ah, perfect, it works. Alright. The next thing we're going to need to do is we are going to learn how to make a recipe. So to make a recipe, we're going to need to type down here in our public Ruby mod a new note. This note will be called recipes. And in this note, we're going to type game registry, capital G, capital R, dot add recipe, open parentheses, and then in these open parentheses we are going to type new item, capital I, capital S, and stack, all one word, item stack, and then you're going to make parentheses on item stack, and type Ruby block, comma, space 1. This is the code used to add a recipe to Minecraft. You put whatever block you want to make in the item stack brackets. I put Ruby block because I want to make a recipe to make the Ruby block. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to import item stack, import it to net.minecraft, the item.item stack, and we have an error here, and we won't do that though. Between these two parentheses you're going to put a comma and a space and type new object, capital O in object, and then put the square brackets right after that. You won't type anything in them, and then you will put an open one of those brackets in there and press enter. Put a semicolon at the end of it all, and inside these brackets we are going to type a set of parentheses and then a comma and a space, another set, comma, space, one more set, and then you're going to make single parentheses, and then at that you're going to put a comma. So what this is imagine this is the crafting table. So this will be the top row, so I'll put 3 spaces here. This is the middle row, and this is the bottom row. So if we're going to make our Ruby block, we would like to make it out of Ruby items, so we're going to need to make a symbol to represent the Ruby items. I will use, it doesn't matter what you use, I'll just use X's, and we'll make 3, in each of these. So if you can imagine top, middle, bottom, that's just like making a diamond block or an emerald block. And then in these single parentheses you're going to put a capital X as well. And after this comma, you're going to put Ruby item. This means that X is represented here as being Ruby item. If you wanted to make this something from Minecraft, you could always type in items.stick if you wanted the X to be stick, and you could import items, of course. Or you could do blocks dot one of these, bed, so you could make it a bed block or whatever, but we're going to use our Ruby item as our building material for this. Save it right here, and now you're going to run Minecraft. The way we're going to need to test this out is we will need a crafting table. Although I do not have the right texture on for this block of Ruby, I do have a Ruby ore block. This will work just fine. And you can see it makes our blocks of Ruby. So the recipes work perfectly. And that will be it for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode of my Minecraft mod making series, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions and if you have any errors, tell me in the comments section down below what you are having troubles with, and I will be sure to answer you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. By going into our computer section, you can find this by just clicking right here, double tapping that, and you'll be in here. So what you want to do is you want to right click the background and click new folder, and you'll just name this Eclipse. Always type it into if it doesn't show up and it has an error, but there you go. So now you're going to write in public Ruby mod, game registry, capital G for game, capital R for registry,